Hey everybody, this is Eric Bond, the founder of beatthegmat.com, and it's my pleasure to bring you the third part of our Write Like an Expert series, where we invite MBA admissions experts to break down the admissions essays for the top B schools. Today we are joined by Deena Maerowitz. So Deena is an MBA admissions expert working for ClearAdmit, and she's going to be joining us for this hour to break down the essays for Columbia Business School. Just wanted to say a couple words about Deena and who she is. So we're very lucky because Deena is actually an insider. She used to work as she was actually the former associate director of admissions at the Columbia Business School. And a lot of the work that she did there is related to what we do with Beat the GMAT in our online communities, where she was sort of spearheading the efforts and outreach for the website for Columbia Business School, as well as opening up discussion threads and sort of bringing in social media as part of the admissions process for Columbia. Deena also has a variety of work experiences in education, just in her career. So she's worked in a number of roles as a legislative counsel in Congress, the U.S. Congress, as well as working for organizations like the Education Defense, the Children's Defense Fund. So it's without further ado, just wanted to welcome Deena to our community. So welcome, Deena.
Thank you.
Great. So we're going to be back actually in just a couple seconds. We're going to switch over to presentation mode, but in just a few seconds we'll be back and we can kick off this essay breakdown. So hang with us. Hey everybody, this is Eric again, and we have Deena here ready on standby to walk us through her presentation. Again, we're breaking down this year's Columbia Business School admissions essays. So go ahead, Deena, it's all yours.
All right, well, first of all, of course, thank you so much to Eric and to everybody at Beat the GMAT. We're really happy to be a part of this. And I'm looking forward to talking with you about Columbia Business School's essays for this year. There was a little change in the essays this year. They're down to 2 essays. And I'll start to go through the information for you, but let me just first tell you a little bit about ClearAdmit. We are an educational counseling firm, and we guide students through the top MBA programs. We work with applicants all around the world to ensure that they really are successful when applying to business school. I've been doing this for 6 years. I'm a senior admissions counselor with ClearAdmit, and as Eric mentioned, I'm a former associate director at Columbia. So I will get us started. So as I mentioned, there are now 2 essays for Columbia Business School, and it's a little bit of a change, but in a way it really makes the process simpler for an applicant. It's really clear to see from these 2 essays exactly what Columbia is looking for from you. For the first essay, essay number 1, they're asking you, what are your short-term goals? What are your long-term goals? And how will Columbia Business School help you achieve these goals? And basically, what you want to make sure that you do is be very you plan to do both immediately after business school and say 5 or 10 years on down the line. It's really, really important because, of course, the business schools want to make sure that you're going to be employed when you graduate, and so they want to make sure that you've really thought through this plan. And you need to talk about why Columbia specifically is the program that's going to work for you. So you want to define those goals, talk about really sort of what your vision is for your positions right after business school, give a few firms, a couple of names of organizations that you are interested in working for, and then sort of tie those into how they'll work, how you move to your long-term goal. And when you're thinking about really the process of writing this essay, think about the fact that the skills and knowledge that you have now, combined with what specifically Columbia will give you in terms of what classes and the program and why it's a good fit for you, what professors, what you like about the academics of the program will get you to that first job, and then how the skills and knowledge that you've gained there will get you to your long-term goal. So there should be a progression. You want everyone to see that, you want the AdCom to see that you've really thought through your career and why Columbia fits into that at this point. It's really, really important that you do research on why Columbia is a school for you, and why Columbia's classes and later on the organizations, but why the academics there make sense for you, and why you need to get an MBA now at this point in your career. So you want to show that you've reached a plateau, that you absolutely can't get to where that short-term goal is until you get the Columbia degree. Okay, so let's go on to the next essay, which is essay 2. And this is a really fun essay. When I was at Columbia, you know, part of what makes Columbia so great is that it really has an incredibly vibrant student community. There are clubs and organizations on campus. Students really have to work to choose what things that they're going to do because there's always so much offered there. And besides that, you've got New York City as your backdrop. So there's constantly incredible fun things going on. And this essay is specifically asking you, tell us about you. We want to know what kind of person you're going to be on campus. How are you going to enrich our community? How are you going to participate and be a leader on our campus? You know, all the clubs and organizations, they're what make the community so vibrant there. And so Columbia wants to be sure that when applicants apply, that they're accepting applicants that are saying right out, I'm going to be a leader in this club and organization. I'm going to join this. Here's how I'm going to enrich the lives of my peers and the community at Columbia. So what are you passionate about? What have you done outside of your academics and your work experience? You know, are you a fly fisher woman? Are you interested in the Columbia Women in Business program? Are you going to join, Follies, which is a play that the students put on there, and they sort of do a parody of professors? Are you a tuba player? Are you a rower? All of these things really can be good topics for you to talk about who you're going to be on campus and how you're going to fit into the community. You need to do research here as well about what clubs and organizations are a fit for you in terms of what you've done before, and how you can tie in your interests into the Columbia community. So, for example, if you have been working with underprivileged youth and doing tutoring, well, Columbia's got a great program called the Harlem Tutorial Project, and you want to talk about, I've done this sort of work before, and I plan also to do it on Columbia on campus. The same sort of thing exists for if you've done any sort of dance or musical work or theater work, and how you're going to connect that to working with other students on the campus Follies. So those are all really important things to think about when you're writing this part of the essay. Sometimes it's hard for people to understand that this is such a big part of the admissions decision, but it really is. Your academics, your work experience, and who you are outside of both of those are really, really important. And you want to talk about how you're going to enrich the community there and really be different from other applicants that might have similar work backgrounds that you do. So those are the two essays for Columbia. And I just want to let you know about additional resources that we have available online. You can see we have school guides, we have interview guides for all of these schools, and of course we have strategy series and school selection guides. So I, of course, am happy to talk with any of you. If anybody wants to email me a resume, somebody at ClearAdmit will speak with you and give you a free initial assessment. And so I'm happy to sort of take it back to Eric.
Great. Well, thank you very, very much, Deena, for that overview. So I think that we can do this. I see some questions that are starting to come in, and I think now would be a great time to actually switch into a Q&A mode, because there's many things that you had mentioned, I think, that people are starting to pick up on that they'd like to get some clarification. Why don't we do this? We're going to bring Deena back in just a couple seconds, bring back her video feed so we can talk to her directly. We're going to be coming back in just a few seconds, and we can begin our Q&A, so just hang on tight.
Now, have they been looking at
Okay, so we're back now. Sorry about that, folks,
That's
for that
okay.
brief delay. And so Deena is here. She, again, this is the Columbia Business School essay breakdown, the Right Like of an Expert series. And Deena is a former admissions director at the Columbia Business School. So we've heard her professional walkthrough of the two short essays for the Columbia application this year. And a number of you actually have questions that are coming in. So I actually want to begin with a personal question that I have, Deena, because one thing that sort of triggered me, I think, was in your discussion for essay number 2. You said that the Columbia admission staff is very interested in understanding, who the applicant is, obviously, like what passions that person has outside of even just work. I want to sort of just lay out a scenario to you, though. So let's pretend I'm in New York. I'm an investment banker, and I've been working 100-hour weeks for the last 2 years, and I'm now applying to Columbia. That has not really afforded me too much time to, check out volunteer opportunities, or even I'd argue culture, sort of personal interests, because I'm working all the time. What sort of advice would you have for me, the workaholic person, or the folks who are in just really demanding jobs?
Well, it's important to consider that you're competing against people who also have demanding jobs that have made some time for these extracurriculars. But Columbia absolutely understands that. I mean, especially being in New York and understanding what kind of long hours people in the banking industry work in, that they know that you might not have had as much time to devote to extracurricular activities. I think one way to sort of work with that is to show a link from when you did have time, when you were undergraduate, and what your interests were there, and sort of try in a very small way even to bring that to your current work, and then to bring it to how you'll participate on campus. The other thing to think about is that sometimes people don't necessarily know that what they might be doing in work for sort of a project related to a sort of an extracurricular in their work can also be something. So if you're involved in a community service project through your job, you can talk about how you can translate that as well to the Columbia community.
Oh, okay. So that's actually a very interesting suggestion. So things like, so I can possibly weave in leadership that I've had within, let's say, my Goldman Sachs volunteer day,
Right.
or sort of any sort of, I guess, kind of those small leadership and community service roles that can sometimes appear within work.
Exactly.
But doesn't necessarily happen outside of work.
Right. Well, some people don't have time for that stuff, but to have it built in is something that you want to connect to.
Gotcha. Okay. So a couple questions from the audience here.
Sure.
And these are actually very, very specific to Columbia, of course. We have a question coming from Twitter from a person named Zoom Theorist. And Zoom Theorist is asking, is Columbia really picky about age when it comes to their applicants? So the way that I'm interpreting that is there sort of is there a preference in terms of how old, I guess, an applicant should be from the perspective of Columbia?
Well, I mean, I think that most applicants have somewhere between 3 and 7 years of work experience before they start at Columbia. But if you're a younger or an older applicant, what you really want to consider is that the school is going to be wondering how well are you going to fit in with the community. So if you're an older applicant, you want to really be persuasive in your essay that you're really involved in activities and that you're not going to be sort of away from your peers in that way. If you're a younger applicant, the same applies. You want to show that you'll be able to be involved with organizations, that you won't be intimidated if you're going to be coming in with applicants that are slightly older than you are.
Okay. So another Zoom theorist actually just responded that he's 31 years old. Yeah.
Go ahead and apply.
Yeah, I think that's the message. If you're ready, then and you can make a compelling case, then of course apply.
Right. If you are young and you've reached a point where you feel like you need an MBA and you can make a compelling argument for that and how you're going to fit on campus, then there's no reason why you shouldn't apply.
There you go, straight from the insider source. Another question coming in is with regard to resumes. So for the people that have maybe a lot of experience, maybe several years, beyond the 5 years, and I guess a track record of success, is it a requirement to have your resume fit on just one single page, or could it be 2 pages? Who knows, multiple pages?
I strongly suggest that they put everything in their resume on one page. It makes it much easier for us in the admissions office to be dealing with less more than more. They need to work and be as concise. Now, if you've been out for more than 10 years and you have 2 pages, that's sort of an exception. But I would say really work hard to get your resume on one page. That's something that we do at ClearAdmit, is to help clients work with their resumes and to really format them clearly and well so that all of their strengths are there, but that extraneous material is removed.
So one follow-up question about that, though, Deena. So is that the case, too, with people who are applying for executive MBAs? Because those are, folks who have a really long track record. Is that sort of the standard that all admissions for any MBA program?
Well, that's a good question. Since Columbia just combined their executive MBA and their MBA programs, there may be a different rule that applies for executive MBA. Most of my executive MBA applicants still have their resumes on one page, but there are some programs that will accept a 2-page resume.
Gotcha. Okay, great. I'm seeing a number of questions actually coming in with regard to the optional essay.
Sure.
One person in particular coming in from, I think, AOL says, if I have 1 F on my transcript, do I need to explain this on the optional essay? But I want to sort of expand that question to what is sort of appropriate to highlight in optional essays beyond just even a poor showing and a poor grade on your transcript.
So it's a good question. For your optional essay, keep in mind that our job in the admissions office at the time when everyone's applying is to really read through your applications, to read through what you've written, and that unless you have a reason to be adding more information, you want to not make more reading for us in the admissions committee. So things that you need to explain would be, yes, an S if it's in a, you want to explain why that happened. And it can be a very short statement. Any time off during your career, so sort of gaps of more than a couple of months. Where were you? And if there were any gaps in your education. Things that might raise eyebrows in terms of why, where was this person, what was happening there. Admissions officers understand that you're not perfect. If you have an F in your transcript, you want to explain it, but it's not necessarily going to be something that is, going to create chaos in the admissions office. But to explain these things goes a really long way in showing the maturity of an applicant.
So, I guess this is actually a very common thing that I'm seeing within our community of, maybe if I don't mention it or just sort of tuck it away underneath this rug, like this sort of one sort of glaring problem with my application that it could be overlooked. It sounds like what you're saying is a very consistent message of just acknowledge when there is something that seems a little bit off.
To acknowledge it and talk about, very quickly why it happened, to accept responsibility to that, to not blame it on somebody else, but just to explain it quickly and then show how you've changed since that incident, if there has been an incident. You have to be truthful on your application, of course, and it's also really helpful. Otherwise we don't know in the admissions office, and if it raises sort of a question mark, that's a negative for you.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, I'm seeing lots of actually follow-up questions coming in with regard to the specific issue. So Wyatt from AOL just asked, what about explaining the circumstances of having a low GPA that went up? So in his case, he went from a 2.7 to something much higher. Is that something that actually warrants an optional essay too? Because there's actually a track record showing that showing improvement.
Well, I guess it would really depend if those classes that he did poorly in initially were quantitative-based classes. I guess it would be a case-by-case. I have a case-by-case response to that. Certainly, if you have a record of sort of lower grades in quantitative classes, you want to either show that you've improved those towards the end of your academics, or you want to have an alternative transcript to show that you retook those classes and did well in them. But of course, business schools, admissions offices are looking for an upward trend in academics.
Of course, yeah. I want to bring it, our Q&A a little bit more back to Columbia itself specifically. And there are a couple of myths that I'd like to actually dispel with regard to the school that I see circulate all the time in our community. So myth number one, Columbia is a school only for finance people. Right.
I was going to even say that one before you said it. Columbia is in New York, and we are close to the finance world. We're right there, so it's in our backyard. It's in Columbia's backyard. And so it's a great place to go if you're interested in finance. But there are so many other great programs at Columbia. And one thing to note is that, there's a very strong program in entrepreneurship. And since the new dean has taken over, that's really been a very big initiative on campus. Also, social enterprise is another area where Columbia just has an amazing program. So you have to do a little bit more research. They certainly don't like that assumption that it's just a finance school. Columbia's happy to say, yeah, we have a great finance program, but they want you to look more broadly, and there is a lot more to see there.
Okay, so that's very nice, resounding no. That's a false myth, is what I'm hearing here. So another myth, and this is a pretty common one, is actually with regard to the location of the campus. Now, I'm not actually quite sure personally where the Columbia Business School campus is, but I've heard where the Columbia undergraduate, school is, maybe in the same place, and people in our community sometimes speculate, well, that's a bad area of town. Why would I want to live there? Is any thoughts about like what life is like actually on campus? Is it a bad place to live?
It's not at all a bad place to live. It's a really great location. I loved living in New York City and traveling up there. It's around 116th Street. It is part of a larger campus, and the campus itself the business school itself is in Uris Hall on campus. I think the important thing to think about when you think about your business school location is, wow, what's around me? And Columbia really sees New York City as sort of the extended campus. There are, it's New York, so there are lots of different places in the city you can live. You don't have to live right up on campus, near the campus, but there's a great transportation There's a great transportation system in the city, so you can live in other places, and it's amazing. But the campus itself is beautiful and safe.
Okay, so here's my last myth here, and this is one that always irritates me. But if I go to Columbia, then I'm gonna kiss my West Coast ambitions goodbye. I just have New York, and that's it.
Well, that's definitely a myth. Columbia is a well-known name across the United States and internationally. We have students attending from all over the United States, obviously, and all over the world. So many students go to companies in San Francisco and Los Angeles, definitely outside of New York. And like I said, yes, people know Columbia because of its finance strength, but there's so much more there to offer, and students end up in every area of the world, and which is one thing that makes Columbia's network so great.
Okay, well, message to the Beat the GMAT community. You heard it straight from Deena, the former admissions director. Columbia is a safe place, has many awesome programs, even beyond finance, and it has an exceptional brand that's going to carry with you wherever you go. So please stop asking these questions. Just joking. Okay, so
you can follow up with us at ClearAdmit. We're happy to answer questions.
Even better. So you can ask the good folks at ClearAdmit for more specific advice in your specific for your own situation. A couple other questions now coming in, and really good ones actually. So I see a new one from Venkata. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. From Facebook, and this is a question actually about career changing. And so this specific question says, for career changers, any special things to consider in the career goals essay. But I want to expand that even more to address what should career changing people keep in mind just as a total package when they apply to Columbia?
Well, there's a few things to consider when you're changing careers. You need to be able to show that what you're going to gain from the business school, based on the experience that you have now, is going to get you to that next spot. It's going to be able to help you transform your career. So you need to really do the research and show why what you'll gain from Columbia will be able to get you there. I mean, that's a very crucial part. So you need to do research on the classes, on the program. Why is it that you need this particular, why do you need to get an MBA to switch careers? Is there something else you could be doing in your job now? And you need to explain, why an MBA is your next step in that goal.
Gotcha. So, again, it really comes down to from what I'm hearing, it really just comes down to, it's compelling story. If it's a career-changing essay or career-changing strategy is really no different from a why MBA strategy, and just understanding yourself.
You want to show sort of that continuity. I mean, it is always a concern in the admissions office that applicants are going to be employed after they graduate, and you want to show that you've really thought out that plan.
Right.
So if you are thinking about changing careers, you have a little bit more work to do in terms of showing how the skills and knowledge that you have now can be relevant to what it is that you want to do after business school, so that again, you can show that path.
Okay, so I want to dissect this issue a little bit more, because something you said actually got me very excited, which was, the admissions office wants to see that, you have a viable path to ultimately getting employment, after your MBA. So
Right.
the question is this, though. I don't want to be too blunt with this, but I'm going to be, which is, aren't these career essays at the end of the day kind of just empty showcases? Because people change their preferences, they gain new interest in business schools. There's a lot of discovery that actually happens. So
No, that's absolutely right. And, everybody knows that you're going to be exposed to new and amazing things at business school. And your plan may change. It may develop into something even better than you thought. But they still want to be reassured that you've got a plan, that you're not going to be floundering while you're there and sort of not knowing what sort of internship you want, not knowing where you want to go for a job. To show them a plan and the admissions office keeps in mind that, okay, this may not be where you end up, but nobody says to you 10 years out of business school, hey, you said in your admissions essay that you were going to do X and now you're doing Y. It's totally fine to change your mind when you get there, but for the purposes of admission, you really need to be clear.
And when you're at Columbia, were there any studies that you've done, just perhaps anecdotally or officially, that compared the careers that people had stated in their admissions versus like where they ultimately got placed after their MBA? Is that?
That's a good question. That might be something to do more research on. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that students would change their mind, and that would just be based on exposure to great classes and great programs. Even if they knew they existed, once they were there, they may have really gotten swayed and decided to go in a different direction.
Makes sense to me. Okay, I see some more questions coming in. Again, another one from NK Ruby. This is one I like because it's a GMAT question, which gets me excited every time. The question is, what does Columbia consider to be a strong GMAT quant score? And if you don't have that, what are things that you can do to supplement your quant?
Okay, well, you do need to have a strong quant score for your GMAT to show Columbia that you are going to be able to handle the rigorous quantitative work of your first year of business school. I think it's important to shoot for around an 80%. But if you can't get that, it's really worth building an alternate transcript, which is something I mentioned earlier. And that means some people just are not great test takers. And so if for some reason you can't get your quant score up, but you still feel like you have the quantitative strength to make it through business school and you want to show that, you can take some quantitatively based classes in the area where you are, or reputable online classes. And you can also, if you have a quantitatively based job that you're doing every day, you want to talk about that maybe it isn't translating through my score, but I work with numbers every day and I do some really complicated analysis, so here's what I do, and I do think that I have the strength to make it through a rigorous quantitative program.
And also a shameless plug, you can also retake the GMAT by going to Beat the GMAT. You have a great community to help you, so don't worry about that quant score. Okay, here's another question. This is from Kanak from Facebook. She's asking, I have 4 years of work experience, but had to take a break for 1 year. She's not very specific about what that break was about, but will that affect my application? So, for people that do have to take time off, there's the optional essay obviously to address that, but are there any other strategies and things to consider when presenting time off to Columbia?
Yeah, again, people have complicated lives, and their lives may not always be in perfect shape for an admissions application. It's okay. People lose jobs, family issues come up. Look, this is a tough economy. A lot of people that are applying to business school right now may not have, either the ideal job that they want to right now, or they may be out of work. So to simply have a year where you were out of a job isn't going to be something that's, going to hold you back tremendously. But you need to explain what you're doing with that time. How are you using the time that you're off? Are you engaging in volunteer work, or did you do great work in an extracurricular activity. I think what the admissions office really doesn't want to see is sort of just a big gap that's unexplained. People do lose jobs, and people do take off from jobs for family reasons or illness, and you can mention that briefly if that's the case, but also what's really important is what you're doing during that time.
That's interesting. So Kanak actually, she just followed up, and her situation is kind of interesting, which is she's in the United States as on a dependent visa. So she got married recently and was brought to U.S., but her visa doesn't allow her to work in the United States.
Right. Which is, I hear that a lot from spouses of people who have been married and move here.
Yeah.
So, again, the question would be, well, what did she do with her time?
Yeah.
She doesn't need to be a paid job, but did she continue to do research? Did she do extracurricular community service work? Did she do any writing? What was she doing with that time, even if it wasn't a paid position?
So I want to go back to something you just said about, you brought up the example of being laid off. And, this is something that happens to a lot of people, especially now, obviously. And, other sort of general strategies you have for people for when you're laid off, like how do you treat that in the context of your overall package when you're applying?
Well, I think you can explain that you no longer are working or there was a gap in your employment. But again, the overarching theme has always got to be what you were doing with that time. There are some things that are going to be out of your control. If your business goes under, if you're working in one of the industries that have lots and lots of layoffs, that has nothing to do with your performance, then it's an understandable reason why you maybe had to switch jobs or maybe were unemployed for a few months. But you want to explain what you did with that time. I can't even stress that enough.
Great. So it sounds like we've hammered that one down. Use your time very well, and whether you're working or not working.
Right. It's about what's in it for us when we admit you. And so Columbia wants to see that you are going to be enriching their community. And if that means that you've been working on yourself outside of a career, outside of a job for a while because you didn't have that opportunity, well, as long as you've used that time well, that makes sense.
I see another question coming in here from a guy named Sauce87124 from Twitter. And he actually has a question that strikes a chord to me very personally. So his question is, I run a small business around my passion. So my personal life and my professional life are very connected. In fact, maybe identical. What advice would you have for essay number 2?
To talk about your passions, to talk about what got you to where you are. And you can tie in the fact that, why you do the work that you do without going into great detail about that work, is so important to you. Really what got you to that level? Why is, the work that you are doing so much part of your life? And talk about how it is part of your other life. You want to show Columbia, you want to show any admissions office that you are, going to enrich the community, that it's not just going to be all work and no play, that you're a balanced, well-rounded person. So if your interests overlap, that's fine, but show that other part of who you are.
Gotcha. Yeah, Sauce, I feel you. I feel the same way about Beat the GMAT too. It's both a professional and personal passion of mine. And when I actually applied to business school, this is something that I kind of grappled with too, because I wasn't really clear on how I should treat that as either a hobby, professional work. But Deena has some very solid advice. So I'm seeing a bunch of questions coming in about the. Oh, okay. Sorry, I have to add this. Sauce just tweeted again. Thanks for feeling the sauce, and Deena and I definitely do. So, I'm seeing a lot of questions coming in about international opportunities. So, can you talk a little bit more about what Columbia does, perhaps to place people internationally, or whether that's an emphasis in terms of international campus outreach? Just what is Columbia doing outside of the United States?
Well, of course, there's the Chazen Institute at Columbia, which is really home to so much. That started in 1991, and it's a really strong part of Columbia's program. There are graduates from Columbia all over the world, and Columbia really prides itself on being such an international place. So you will automatically feel as an international student that you have a place there, but that you'll have a network as well, sort of internationally, in terms of other students that have been there before you, and jobs.
So this Chazen Institute, this is actually I'm not that familiar with that program. Is there a little bit more you can say about that?
Well, it's really a program that's very focused on international work, and it is a home for language. Students take language classes. There's exchange programs. There's international research. There's symposia, speaker programming, all about international issues at the school. And so they just make very broad outreach into the international community, and they bring people in, and they also send Columbia graduates and Columbia interns out.
Got it. Very cool. I'm taking a step back, actually. So let's pretend that. Well, let me ask the question this way. So, when you think about the Columbia type or the Columbia person, what kind of profile do you think of in general as someone who'd be an awesome fit for Columbia?
Well, I think it's important to think about how the admissions committee is looking at applicants. There's no one type of person that's going to be a perfect fit. For what Columbia wants to do is to get a diverse class. And so that means they're going to take people with different interests from many different areas, geographical areas, work experience, background. So there's no one person. I would say that you need to be able to show that you can handle the rigors of difficult academia, because you're going to business school, but certainly what they're looking for is somebody who can contribute to the community and be successful after they graduate and really love their Columbia experience and be an alumni who is involved and is enthusiastic about the program.
So basically what you're saying, there's no one type at all.
No.
Yeah, I thought it wouldn't be that simple. Okay, some more questions here. So again, if you're joining us just now, we're speaking to Deena Maerowitz. She is former director of admissions at Columbia Business School and currently an admissions expert with ClearAdmit. And we're taking some questions. And I see another GMAT question, so I have to ask it from Venkata on Facebook, which is, how many attempts on the GMAT is considered within the limits for Columbia?
Do you want to take that one?
So I think so. Okay, this may be different. This definitely differs from school to school. But my take is 2 to 3 max is usually the right thing. So I believe Columbia has the same standard policy, right, where they will consider your highest GMAT performance.
Sure. Columbia wants to say, wow, look how great our applicants do with their GMAT. So they are looking for a high score. I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that, yes, you don't really take it more than 3 times. But what you want to do is make sure that any time you take the GMAT, you're really prepared for the GMAT. So here's your chance to make a plug, Eric. But I think that, if you tend to take the GMAT too many times and your scores are at one level and then all of a sudden they go to a different plane, it can sort of make the admissions committee wonder if that were a fluke. So I would say try not to take it more than 3 times, but make sure that any time you're taking the GMAT, you're really, really prepared for that GMAT.
Yes, that's right. I can't agree more with what Deena said.
And, I figured.
And, just something that I want to remind folks in our community. So, okay, our website is called Beat the GMAT, but ultimately we all have the same goal, which is to help you get into your dream business school. And in order to do that, it's not just the GMAT that's required. And this is something that's actually a point that I think is lost often with our community is, people get really obsessed about this test. They want to take it 6 times, in the course of a year. At some point, you have to cut your losses. I mean, that's kind of a blunt way of saying it, but there are other things in your application that can tremendously help your chances of getting into your dream school. So let's say you can't do that well on the GMAT. You've tried it 3 times. You might want to try to work on investing outside, either in other passions, your career, getting promoted many times maybe would be nice, or even just crafting the most rock star essays possible. Try not to take it more than 2 to 3 times, and don't obsess over it after a certain point as well. Deena, I don't know if you have a different opinion on that.
No, I just think keep in mind too the range of schools. There aren't just 3 schools out there or 5 schools out there. There are a lot of different business school programs, and if your GMAT doesn't meet the criteria for 3 schools, that doesn't mean that you can't go and get an MBA somewhere else and have a great experience.
Absolutely, completely agree with that. I see a question coming from Puneet via Facebook, and I'm glad that he's asking this. So many community members here on Beat the GMAT come from outside the United States. So, and his question is, how do I learn more and get like a very deep sense of the culture, information at Columbia, especially in cases where I can't visit the campus? So the question that I think is most interesting to me from what Puneet's suggesting is, what do you do when you can't visit the campus? Like, what are the really strong outlets for information that I should be seeking?
Well, for one thing, Columbia admissions officers travel, and so you should check out when Columbia is going to be where you are. The other thing is that the website is just an incredible resource. You can find out lots of information about the clubs, the organizations, the classes, the professors on campus through the website, and I would say you absolutely need to use that as a resource. Another place to perhaps make contact is to the Hermes Society, which is really the student arm of the admissions office on campus. And students there will sort of personally talk you through what their experience is like, depending on, and you'll be matched up with somebody who has similar career interests, similar background. You can ask to speak to somebody about, a particular area of study or focus. So that's a really good resource too for looking closer at the campus if you can't actually visit.
And is there a way for applicants to speak with alums? Is there sort of like an alumni network where Columbia can help facilitate connecting you to perhaps a recent graduate who is now in my area?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that Columbia is obviously the alumni community is very big and very supportive and very involved. The interviews that take place beyond are really by Columbia alumni. So Columbia alumni are absolutely involved in the process in many ways, and you can call the admissions office and ask to speak to somebody there and ask them that question specifically.
Yeah, and one point I'd like to make on top of what Deena just said, it's not that hard, I think, to find alumni yourself even. So example of this is when I was applying to business school, there are a couple schools that I had in mind that I was very excited about, wanted to learn more about, and meet the alums from. So what I did was just email my alumni list from my own university, and lo and behold, a number of contacts sort of came up. If you just sort of make a public outreach to your own school list that you graduate from, say, hey, I'm looking for Columbia alums to speak with because I'm really excited about your program, I bet you that in most cases you'll be able to find someone, or at least someone who knows someone.
I do know that, Columbia is happy to put you in touch with current students that can really give you a sense about what life is like on campus and really what they gain from the program. And that's kind of an important piece that you want to be thinking about during the application process.
So I'm glad that you brought up the current students thing, because I've actually had a very interesting I had a debate with someone who is currently applying to business school about the value of name dropping. And what I mean by that is, let's pretend that I visited Columbia myself, and I got to hang out with a couple of students who provided me some really valuable perspective that's going to be used in my application. I'm sort of tempted now as an applicant to name drop, oh, I met with Deena, who is a second year, and she told me X, Y, and Z. And the question that we had was, is doing something like that valuable in the eyes of admissions? Because does it demonstrate a serious effort to do research to understand the program?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, it's less important. I mean, it's certainly worth mentioning the person that you met with, the student that you met with. But what's really important is to mention what you learned from them about the program and why that makes Columbia an even better fit for you.
Right.
But absolutely, if you have done the research and you've come and visited the school and you've met with students, feel free to mention that in your application. It shows that you're really interested and that you've really taken the time.
Great. So don't name drop for the sake of name dropping, but actually explain how it helped help you arrive to applying.
Yeah.
Okay. I see a pretty interesting question from a person named Kingdom from Facebook, and his question is, how does the quality of the undergraduate school or the pedigree of the undergraduate school play into your admissions? So if I went to Harvard versus a much lower tier school, how does that work when in the eyes of the admissions office?
Well, what Columbia is really looking for are students that are going to be able to handle the rigorous academics. And so, obviously, if you come from a well-recognized school, that's a really nice extra piece. It really helps Columbia know, oh yeah, they know that schools, Ivy League schools or other schools have strong reputations and that they're known for having rigorous academics. And so that's a nice little piece. But that being said, if you do really, really well at an unknown or what you consider an unknown university or college, and you can show the academic rigors, that's fine. Columbia takes people they're not just taking graduates from Ivy League institutions and what people consider top tier colleges and universities. Really, they're looking for a diverse class. So to talk about an academic experience from a lesser well-known college is completely fine.
Great. Excellent. So this is, I think, the last question that we have time for today, Deena. Thank you so much, by the way, for
Thank you.
For participating. It's been great. This question comes from Nirmal. I guess your pitch about the value of their entrepreneurship programs has really triggered him, because his question is, do I need to present a business idea to prove my interest and demonstrate my interest in entrepreneurship at Columbia?
Well, I guess I would want to know if he means in terms of for his short-term or long-term goal, does he need to show that, or just because he's interested in the program itself?
I sort of interpret that as part of his career goals essay. Do I need to actually have some form of a business idea or like a business idea pitch, I guess, in mind in order to make the story about why I want to join Columbia's program to take advantage of its entrepreneurship resources?
I mean, I think the more detail you can show, the better. It's not enough to just say, I want to be an entrepreneur, but it's you don't necessarily have to have every single detail planned out for your business, but to show why Columbia's entrepreneurship program will then help you build your own business and what that business would gain from what you learned at Columbia is really important. So you should provide as many details as you can about your long-term goal. If that's your long-term goal, if it's your short-term goal to create that out of business school, then you should be talking about the details of that as well.
Okay, well, Deena, we'll give you the last word. Any parting advice for people who are interested in Columbia?
I think that it's a really great fit for many different applicants, and just to really keep in mind that there's so much to offer there beyond just the finance program. and that you're really part of an amazing community being in New York City. You just have so much at your fingertips. So, apply.
Apply. It's great advice. Okay, well, we've been speaking with Deena Maerowitz. She is an MBA expert with ClearAdmit, as well as a former admissions director with Columbia Business School. And Deena, thank you so much for your time today. This is a fantastic presentation and Q&A.
Thank you so much to Beat the GMAT. Thanks a lot.
Wonderful. So in terms of a couple next steps for you guys, the community, just wanted to let you know that we will be publishing this video shortly after this we end this presentation today, and we'll also try to get those slides up for you as well. There are some other essay breakdowns happening in the coming weeks, so be sure to check out our schedule. And this is going to be a really exciting series. This is part 3, and we have 6 more to go. So one more thought just to leave you with, which is if you have any questions that we were not able to address during this live session, highly encourage you to go to clearadmit.com. It's a fantastic organization. The caliber of all the experts there is just absolutely superb. ClearAdmit also has an active discussion community, a discussion forum within Beat the GMAT. It's called Ask ClearAdmit. So you can ask your questions there as well. But check out both resources. So thanks again, Deena, and thank you, Beat the GMAT, for watching. And we'll see you very soon.
Thank you so much.
Okay, take care.